On this episode of
and retapping it and threading it just because it wants to chew on this shit.
Now that I got both fenders off and the front bumper, I'm going to remove the center console inside the Miata and then also the shifter. So need to remove that. I'm not going to record that either. There's no point of it. So I'm going to end up removing that stuff and then getting back with y'all on draining all the fluids. I finally got the car jacked up. I was kind of just dreading it, so I didn't do it for a while. Trying to figure out something else I could do, but it's down to draining all the fluids, which I don't like doing. Don't know why. I just hate jacking up this car just because, well, it was jacked up for I think 4 months in a row and then it was able to drive again. So now I am going to drain all the fluids, including the transmission this time. Can't forget that, or it's gonna spill everywhere. So I got the fluids all drained out. There wasn't a lot. I put my coolant in this bucket right here, and it's pretty dark and green for whatever reason. It's probably just because this engine's really not the best. It needs valve stems, and again, it's been rebuilt one time by me. But anyways, I am going to go down here and let's see if I can get this on camera. You're gonna get the exhaust disconnected in the drive shaft. So it's just easier, and you know, I'm only down here one time. So let me go get that knocked out, and then I'm going to remove the headers and then start time to pull in the engine. I've got everything ready to pull the engine out. Everything's undone from underneath, plus all the wiring on top and all the hoses, as you saw. They're all disconnected. But I can't pull it out tonight because I have to go get my cables that I usually use, or chains, to pick this up. I let my buddy borrow them, so I need to go pick them up from him. But it's like super late and can't get a hold of him. Plus I'm not trying to wake him up. So I'll get back with y'all tomorrow and we'll pull out this engine. So after a while I got this engine out. It was kind of a pain. I accidentally broke a sensor. Luckily, I already had the sensor that I needed on the back of this one. Just pray it works. And then, well, yeah, I got it out. It was a pain in the ass because, well, I'm doing it by myself. So, but I got it out. Wasn't that difficult, I guess. Now I'm gonna remove the starter. And I think that's all we need off of this, and the trans, obviously, but I'm going to take the trans off after I take off the starter and then lower this down and, well, yeah, do that. So let me get in the process of undoing the starter and moving it out the way with all the bolts that I need from it, and then we'll put the clutch on this engine, this other one back there, and the clutch, flywheel, and trans, and we're going to throw it back in here. So it's the next day, but I got the trans off of that engine over there. But as you can tell, it is really, let me get a flashlight real quick. As you can tell, it is disgusting in there. So what I'm going to end up doing is taking it outside, spraying some grease remover off of it, and cleaning up inside that bell housing, because that stuff's like an inch thick. Like, look at that. I just moved that shit and, well, it's pretty thick. So I am going to go take this outside so I can get it cleaned, and I'm going to lower this off of the stand so I can put my clutch on, well, not my clutch, my flywheel, and the new rear main seal. Gonna need to do that, but first let me take this outside and clean it all up so it doesn't look so nasty and doesn't have all that grease on it as it does right now. So I ended up putting a new seal in the back of this. It's what, rear main seal. So I put it back in there, or I put it in, took the old one out, just drilled a hole and just pulled it out with so I just drilled a hole right about right there on the old one and just yanked it out with pliers. It was a little tough to get it out, but that was a good sign that it wasn't leaking from back here. It looks like it was recently done, but I had the seal, might as well replace it. Cleaned out the trans. Let me grab a flashlight so you guys can see. Cleaned it out pretty good. Haven't put the new bearing inside of there. Need to do that. But the trans looks a lot better, not as dirty. So next, gonna put on the stage 2 clutch. So again, this is off-brand, but I am using the original flyway bolts, and I suggest doing that. And if you don't have them, go buy some original flyway bolts. They're actually stronger steel, from my understanding, and they work a lot better. So I'm going to end up putting this clutch on, putting this down, putting the transmission onto that, but you know, replacing that bearing with and putting grease on it. But I'm going to assemble all this, so stamp my fingers. Hopefully this will work. So after 2 hours, I said I would have this done, bolted in, and almost ready to throw in there, but no. So to put it bland, I had to retap this lightweight flywheel. I mean, it is lightweight, but it doesn't have the same thread pitch as any of the bolts that come with the actual, you know, stock clutch. And so I had to retap this shit right there with this to all of them, because it started stripping these bolts. Let me see if I can find one. It stripped the bolts pretty badly. I thought maybe it was just, you know, I thought maybe it was just that it would, you know, it was thread locker, we'll say. But I kind of figured it out. I unbolted one and it came out like that. And so I had to retap it. And here's how I reacted to it. So because of this right here, this lightweight flywheel right here, I had to spend 2 freaking hours freaking retapping it and threading it just because it wants to chew on this shit. Pretty nasty of me, I guess, if you would say, but if you don't order off of eBay, you probably get a better lightweight flywheel. But I ordered off of eBay, never had really a bad experience, but this time I did. So if you order one, make sure you get the right bolts that are strong enough. I like using the OEM bolts because, well, they lasted 20 years. What's, you know, another 30, 50 more years on them? I mean, it's just holding it down. Put some thread locker and it'll hold it down. But I got it done. So next, I'm going to attach the starter and the transmission to the car and get that slammed together. Just quite aggravated at it right now. Back kind of hurts because I just sat there and twisted the whole entire time. So yeah, let me get to that. So hopefully I can drop it in tomorrow. So it's the next day and I ended up getting the transmission, the starter on. As you saw, the flywheel's on. So everything's put together. I got the engine mounts on both sides. So what's going to end up happening next, I saw that this bracket right here wasn't fitting right and it was scratching up this piece. But as you can see, that very light scratch right there. So next we are going to pick up this engine and throw it in the car. So next we can put on the exhaust. But it's going to be a little bit difficult. I only have one person, which is myself, putting this engine and transmission and putting it in there. Did end up scratching the back of my car, as you can tell right there. Scratched up a couple times right there, and as you can tell, I missed a spot right there when I was painting. But doesn't matter. This car is going to go through multiple stages. It's never going to be perfect because it is almost my daily. I drive this almost everywhere. Just been waiting to put this engine in here and hopefully it works. So let's start doing that. Putting this engine into this engine bay and get it all connected. So as you can tell, I have the engine in the engine bay. It's looking good. I don't have the rear trans mount on yet because I want to do a couple other things, like first put this all the way on the car. It's a temp sensor, so put the temp sensor in going to use some RTV so it doesn't leak, because this gasket right here is completely shot. So RTV will help, the likelihood of it actually leaking. And then also I need to weld up this exhaust. So this EGR valve right here, it's supposed to run to the EGR, and 91s didn't have that, so need to cut it off. So I'm gonna plan on cutting it off right there and then welding it, because everybody knows I'm the best welder ever. Not really, but gonna try to weld it up, make sure it looks good. You're not gonna be really able to see it because it's gonna be underneath, but I really don't want an exhaust leak right in my engine bay. So I'm gonna go do those two things and then figure out what I'm gonna do next. So I did make another clip, and well, it disappeared. Well, the water temp sensor's in, and I don't know what else I told you. I don't remember. Couldn't find the other clip for whatever reason. But everything under the engine is all mounted up, including the wiring, which I'm going to double check later on. But let me go down here and show you. So everything's mounted up underneath here. I got the light down there so I could actually see while I was working. But everything's mounted up and tightened down, hand tight or pretty tight. Now let's get back up here and show you what else I did, because I made a video about that, and well, just again, my video card just crapped out. But I also had to bang out these headers right here to get it to fit with my steering linkage right there. And then also I got my power steering lines all hooked up, and I'm hoping this is gonna work right there. Last time it leaked, but I tightened it down a lot this time. Just need to tighten this bolt right here. And then I also got my AC lines put on. I need to still pull a vacuum on it. So I know that's going to be an issue later on, because I think there is some junk in the AC compressor. And then I started mounting this. I'm going to have to throw this in there real quick. Well, to test fit it, I got it working perfectly. And to throw this down there to see if my stock exhaust will work, because I had to rig this other exhaust on there. So it is what it is, but I made it work. So coming back over here, gonna end up mounting the exhaust, semi-mounting it, so I can realize if I need to cut the other end of this exhaust, not this one, the headers, but the actual exhaust itself underneath, to see if I need to cut or tilt it in any shape, way, or form. And then also I will probably start mounting everything up, or putting extending these wires. That's also another thing we need to do for the cast. So this, not that wire, but the cast right here that sits on the back, I need to extend that wiring harness for maybe about half a foot, so it can reach right over there and plug in. So we're underneath the car right now, and as you can see right there, my headers do not match up with my stock, well, my already exhaust that I had, and these are the new headers right there. Sorry, it's kind of tight down here, so I know it's not the best picture quality or video, but what's going to end up happening is I'm going to cut the exhaust right here, right where I re-welded this piece in and that piece. So I'm going to cut that and rotate this to where it will fit on here, and I'm going to rotate it and then bolt it on, just to get an idea of where I need to mount up everything. The only problem is that the exhaust still want to go that way, but what I'm thinking is if I rotate it enough, like rotate this enough, because this is angled, it will angle it back down and connect to the exhaust and tuck up right around where it's supposed to, right around this area. But this is straight right here, but this is at an angle, so it's throwing this whole thing off. So that's what my plan is, and if I need to, I will cut on this piece a little bit more because it is the piece that I already welded, and this is kind of new and fresh, and I really don't want to mess up these headers. So gonna work with that. I might need to cut this end off right there and make it work with that piece, but we'll get to that. So I'm gonna start working on this exhaust and come back to you when I have everything figured out. So I finally figured out what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna end up cutting it off right here, and then cutting another piece off right here, adding a piece to that, and then angling that piece wherever this and that connects. I have about that much of exhaust to give on. I have a spare like piece, so I'm going to end up cutting it right here, cutting it right there, and just slicing those two away, and then re-welding it underneath the car or tacking it up, and then removing it and finishing up the welds. But first let me cut this, and then we'll get to that. So I got this whole exhaust welded up. The problem I ran into is I couldn't get it hot enough for my actual welder to stick to that, and you saw how it's I was using gasless. So I ended up getting this all welded up, and these welds are not that bad. There's a little spackle, or the spitting of a gasless welder. I just don't have any gas, and so that's why I went with. It actually turned out not that bad. I could shove it down, but no one's going to see this exhaust. And I got this end reconnected to this piece, and I am actually pretty proud of this already. I added this extension right there after I cut off a piece from here, so I cut it off like right about right here, and then I trimmed this up right there. And the piece I was talking to in the previous clip, I used, I didn't have to put any money into this. I already had this, and this is the exhaust I already had on the car. So I ended up welding it up. Came out pretty good. This one didn't get. It's not that good. In other words, I just couldn't get it heated up enough, and I was burning holes through this. So I kind of just went low and just kind of piled it up and made it stick. I mean, it's not going anywhere, but it's all, this is all together. I wish I did have a flex pipe on this, but it's fine that I don't. And let me show you how it looks actually on the car, so let me put this on. So we are now underneath the car, and I'm trying to record this. Don't have much room to move around, but if you look at those welds, they're decent, and it's not going to hit right there. If I get my hand to point at it, it's not going to hit right here or catch on fire. It has enough space, so that's why I kind of had it cut out and moved this way, and it actually came out really good. It's not going to hit that. Let's see if I can get it. So it's not going to hit that axle right there, and I'm just really impressed with this. And then also where it mounts up, or it connects to the headers. Not the best welds, but it'll hold. I did weld it nicely underneath. I just try to do an extra just to cover up holes if there were any. And it's tightened. There should be no exhaust leaks anywhere on this car. Look, because I did also put a new or cleaned out the gasket down there. If I can get it in shot, where it hits up to the bottom part of the exhaust. So it's all mounted now. So I am going to get from underneath the car, and well, the headers are on now too, so it's just putting hoses on and putting the car back together. So let's get to that. So I got everything hooked up. I even got the lights somewhat assembled. This side's assembled, or at least looking nice. I did run into a small problem. So with this aftermarket radiator and the fan shroud, my intake will not work, so I ordered a new one. It should be coming in about a couple days, so we're waiting on that. I'm going to now hook up everything else. The radiator's in. I got oil in the car right now. just need to take that off, put the cap back on, and well, the fuel lines are hooked up and everything's really hooked up. I need to buy an O2 sensor, but that's for a later time. And hook up the battery and run the car. I mean, just a couple more things. I'm gonna probably do that off camera. And well, yeah, that's it. Need to get this intake and we can run the car. So that's gonna be it for this video, y'all. Stay tuned for the next video. We're gonna get this car running and on the road and driving and see how well it works. Might take you guys on drive just to see how it is. But I will catch you guys later, and remember, never give up.